Hi, I'm Jeanne Johnson, founder and host of Ridgewood Talks. In 2018, I started Ridgewood Talks to introduce you to the leaders and legends of the village and to dig into the town's hot topics. And now, in 2025, we've expanded our vision to include video and social media highlights to bring those stories closer to you via the platforms you use the most. I am so honored and thankful for everyone who has listened to or watched even a single episode. And I'm proud to say that we have over 6,000 followers on our socials. That's over a quarter of the Ridgewood population, and it's growing every day. This has truly been a service-driven mission and a labor of love. So now we're excited to offer Ridgewood area businesses an opportunity to connect with our valued audience and elevate their brand through our video podcast. This will give you the opportunities to support companies that fuel our platform's growth. So let's grow together. If you'd like to take advantage of these sponsorships, endorsements, and local social media shorts, please email us at ridgewoodtalks@gmail.com. And thanks again for being a part of our growing family. I'm Jeanne Johnson, and I'll see you around town or on the next show. Welcome to Ridgewood Talks. Through this podcast, we will be introducing you to some of the leaders and legends in our village. We'll keep you updated about fascinating local events. We'll dig into the town's hot topics and so much more. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Jeanne Johnson, the founder of Ridgewood Talks and Ridgewood Walks. The goal of these initiatives is to create a kinder, more connected, and more vibrant community. I'm thrilled to be hosting this podcast with my good friend and all-around wonderful guy, Jordan Kaufman. We look forward to meeting with you weekly and hearing your thoughts on who and what you'd like to learn about in our beautiful hometown. For now, be kind, do good, and enjoy this episode. Here we go. Hi, everybody. On today's episode, we're thrilled to welcome Mr. Miles Liu, a dynamic and dedicated educator at Ridgewood High School who's making a real impact both inside and outside the classroom. Miles teaches environmental science and biology, but his influence goes far beyond textbooks and lab work. He's a longtime advisor of the RHS Green Club, where he empowers students to take the lead on sustainability initiatives that directly benefit our community. From school gardens and stream surveys to installing wildflower meadows and advocating for bike lanes in Ridgewood. Miles wears a lot of hats. He was the girls' soccer coach, an Elks Club advisor, and he's the PA announcer for girls' soccer and lacrosse teams. This is someone who's passionate about connecting students with the natural world through hands-on learning and adventure. So welcome, Mr. Liu, and thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. I want to dive right in and say your educational background is very impressive. So share with our viewers and our listeners what your educational background is.
Sure. So ironically, even though I'm a teacher now, it's not in education. So I got my bachelor's degree in biology and natural resources. Took a few years off in between. And
Hold on, let's stop. From where?
Cornell.
Okay, go on.
And then took a few years off in between. I'm trying to figure out exactly what section of natural resources I really wanted to work in, and then decided to go back to grad school, went to Michigan. I think you can tell I like my northern climates.
Yeah, I guess there is a theme there.
Yeah, and then got my master's in sustainability. So while I was there, did a few teaching gigs there, and then that kind of opened the door for what I wanted to do here. I didn't know it at the time, and then slowly slid into teaching.
All right, well, I know that there was something between your education and coming to Ridgewood High School. So my notes tell me that you worked for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Forest Service, and the National Park Service. So because that's so in the news right now, I would like you to share with our viewers, a little bit about what that experience was like for you personally, and then give us an overview of how you feel about things that are happening now.
Sure. So my first job coming out of undergrad, so I stuck around with my lab for a little bit, so that was still within Cornell. And then afterwards, it was time to kind of branch out. That project started kind of fizzling out with the grant and the timeline that they were working with. So I started applying for federal jobs, and I was young, I was willing to move anywhere, and I pretty much picked up the first gig that came my way. So I ended up working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Ludington, Michigan. So it's on the west coast of the Mitten, and that was for removing invasive sea lamprey. So it's an invasive fish, and they eat they feed off of the game fish that a lot of people are trying to catch there. So
and for consumption? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, for example, trout and salmon. So sea lamprey are basically, they look like leeches. They're still technically fish and they creep people out, but they'll latch onto the side of a fish and then basically use a really long tongue and rasp their guts out.
Oh,
and
gross.
Yeah, naturally, fishermen didn't like that.
Yeah,
and no one wants to catch a beautiful salmon with 4 scars on it.
Yeah.
So our job was to basically go to all of the tributaries where lamprey were kind of being raised and remove them.
And so that was a seasonal job for you too?
Yeah, so this was a seasonal job. I think this lasted from maybe April through October.
Okay, and then you went to the Forest Service?
Yeah, so went back home between October and...
Home being New Jersey.
Yes, home being New Jersey. Yeah. I think that's what ended up happening. Yeah, it's a long time ago, so I kind of get the timeline mixed up.
But you had that experience working in that field, working for the government, and then you went into the National Park Service. And I really have to say, personally, thank you for that, because my husband and I are on a quest to go to visit all of the national parks in the United States. And I can't explain to you how grateful I am, again, for those seasonal workers and many of them are teachers, ironically, right? And the work that you people do is so impressive and so appreciated. So what was your role with the National Park Service?
So with the Park Service, this was on the Upper Delaware, what's the official title?
Oh, so it was close by.
Yeah, this one was close. So the Forest Service, that job was out in California.
Oh, where?
So Placerville, so it's about an hour east of Sacramento. Most people don't know where it is. It's pretty close to Tahoe, and that's usually how I describe it.
Well, that's how I know.
Yeah. So over there, we were in the National Forest, and we were actually trying to protect 2 different endangered amphibians. So there was the Yosemite toad and the Sierra Nevada yellow-legged frog. And we were trying to find out where they were so we could put in the proper protections. And at times, it actually involved removing invasive trout.
So that's a very nice theme that you got going on there. Yeah.
I think you can tell I try to have a little bit of a fisheries background. So ironically, I worked with birds in undergrad.
That's what I read, that you actually did an excursion to Venezuela and did some work there with some birding in Venezuela. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a fun story because it actually makes no sense in retrospect. So our lab researched swallows. So tree swallows are the ones that we see normally here. But we were looking at, from an evolutionary standpoint, how different are the swallows along the Americas. So I got sent down to Venezuela, even though I was the one person in our lab who could not speak any Spanish whatsoever, because I was the only one that was available. I was working in the lab. I wasn't a student at the time.
Well, I have to say that's probably not a job that people are clamoring to do, although if you get a free trip to Venezuela, go and have government protection on top of it, right?
Yeah, back then it was still Hugo Chavez instead of Maduro, so it was still a mess, but not as much of a mess as it is now. And for some reason, I said yes to this. So I went kind of unprepared for a 2-month stint. So this was from November through early January. So I was really taken aback because that's the winter. I love my winters, winter holidays. And now it's blazing hot because you're on the equator. So I was kind of mentally unprepared for that. I still enjoyed myself. I probably didn't enjoy it as much as I would have now.
Right.
Given, I'd like to say I'm
you're
more mature now.
Yeah.
More mature,
yeah.
Sure. I'm not sure that's really true, but sure. So I went down there. It's one of those things where I'm really, really glad I did it. And given the situation now, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't do it again.
Right. Yeah. Well, politically, it's just not so great. So, all right. So then you did all of this. You had all of these great experiences. And I think if I remember right, you were writing your thesis and you were like, wait a second, I am really loving the teaching aspect when you were a student teacher, right? And, or were you I don't know how you gotten started.
Kind of in between. So grad school is 2 years for me.
Right.
And that second year, just to pay the bills, most grad students will obviously try to
be
TA. So I ended up teaching biology of fishes, the laboratory portion of it, which was great. I got paid to go out, catching fish with an electric current. And unfortunately, the reading reports things and, having...
Very mundane.
Yeah. But I think the most fulfilling portion, and I still remember the students who wrote this, were, there were these group projects that they would do, and they would say, things have been a little bit they weren't quite equitable, on the workload and the grades, and I handled it as best as I could, and, apparently it was good enough because, I read the TA feedback, and, it was super, super positive, and I thought, I'm feeling better.
Might be good at this.
Yeah, I'm feeling better about the teaching than I am about my thesis writing because, to be honest, I hated the thesis writing. I mean, I don't want to dissuade people from going into that because it is important.
Well, I guess,
but it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I had finished all my coursework, still had to finish the thesis because that hadn't been wrapped up yet. I couldn't justify staying in Ann Arbor, paying the rent there when I didn't actually need to be there. So I moved back home, and it's not an exciting life living back at home just writing your thesis. So I ended up, just to get out of the house, substitute teaching where I grew up at Watchung Hills Regional High School. So
in what city?
It's technically in Warren. I mean, I grew up in Watchung, but
gotcha.
that high school covers 4 different towns. So that was my social life, which sounds really, really sad.
I actually think it sounds kind of exciting because you're with a bunch of young people who are eager to learn too. So that's where you are. So,
but half the teachers I had were actually still there. So it became a really neat catch-up session, including my AP Environmental Science teacher. So when I had a free period and, I didn't have to oversee a bunch of kids that I didn't know, I ended up just hanging out with my old teacher, and which was a nice kind of reunion.
Yeah, and so then they encouraged you to, apply for a real teaching job, not just a substitute
I think
job.
she guided me through it. I wouldn't say she encouraged me to do that because I think that was kind of happening on my own, just kind of organically. But, same thing where I'm writing this thesis. I'm not really enjoying that process. But, anytime I got to jump in because I knew the subject matter of whichever class I was subbing for, I enjoyed that. I loved it. And the kids, even though they didn't really know me all that well, I was a common enough face, just popping in random spots in the building.
Well, you're also really super enthusiastic. I mean, I've spoken to you several times, and you really do bring a lot of energy to whatever space you're in. So I'm sure the kids really appreciated that too.
I think the reality is young people are fun.
Oh, they totally are.
Yeah, they totally are.
Absolutely.
So, and again, I've mentioned this before, but I feel like I haven't really mentally grown up all that much. So, I've grown up where it matters, but when it still comes to having fun or kind of empathizing with them, I think I'm still pretty close.
Well, and you've been very, very lucky that you have been able to be a chaperone for some pretty spectacular trips for Ridgewood High School students. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I've done 3 international trips at this point. So the first one was to Iceland. Last year I went to Bali, and then this past spring break we went to Ecuador, and then we took a quick hop to the Galapagos.
A quick hop to the Galapagos.
Like that is
like, oh my gosh, that is like a bucket list item for me. So I didn't even know that the Ridgewood High School students went there. So tell me about that trip.
Yeah, so we kind of advertised it for mostly AP Biology and AP Environmental Science students.
How many kids got to go?
20-ish.
Wow.
Yeah. We went down. ACIS is kind of the company that we work through, and they just planned everything out for us. So, and the school has worked with them before, so it's super, super smooth.
By the way, so you're chaperoning kids who are super smart, super interested in what the subject matter is that you're learning about, and the country countries that you're in. So there probably wasn't a whole lot of chaperoning going on.
Yeah, I mean, they were great. I mean, they were probably the best kids we could have pulled out. For that. They really embraced it. They really enjoyed everything that we were doing. There wasn't too much phone use in the sense of like,
love that.
Here's what we're doing, and then let me just fiddle on my phone and share. There was a little bit of that because I'm to some extent I'm doing that too.
Well, we all do, yeah.
And some of those experiences are just way too unique to not do that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I'm so glad that you got to do that. And then you're also a chaperone for the ALPS Club. What does ALPS stand for again?
So ALPS stands for Adventure Leadership Peer Support. So I'm not. So there are a few teachers who take more of a leadership role there. I jump in when I have the time and they feel like, you'd be a good fit for this particular trip. So I've done 3 of those trips so far, and I came back from the Adirondacks 2 days ago.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
So that was a 4-night
Welcome
trip.
home.
Yeah, thanks. It's nice to sleep without getting bit by bugs all the time.
Well, and I was going to say, it's probably really hot out there too, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's been pretty rough here weather-wise. Tuesday I think it hit, 101, something like that.
Yeah, it was terrible.
But luckily up in the Adirondacks, it's further north and higher elevation. So it's roasting down here. It's probably 15 degrees cooler up there. So
But so being with the students and helping them understand Mother Nature, I think that was probably your role in there too, and
Part of it,
also
yeah.
in the leadership piece of it too. ALPS is a great organization, although I remember one student, when my kids were in high school, one student came home and her parents actually videotaped her saying, "It was horrible. It was just
it's
terrible."
a challenge.
Yeah.
They're long hikes. Some areas are super, super tricky. You look behind you and there's the cliff on the other side.
But by the way, when you finish a trip like that, and the sense of accomplishment that you have afterwards has got to be really rewarding.
And that's the payoff. I mean, for me, I've done it before, so I know I can do it. The big win is when students who feel like they can't do it, they tell you, "I really don't think I can do this."
Yeah.
And then they go through the whole thing and they make it. That's the big win for us.
Yeah, for sure. So I was told that you have had a humongous impact on the green team at Ridgewood High School. So that's really what I want to focus on now. I know that you did some stuff before that. You were the girls' soccer coach. I think you are also the announcer for girls' soccer and lacrosse. I want to hear a little bit about that. And I also want to hear about the announcements that you make, the PA announcements that you make. Is it weekly or monthly?
Roughly weekly.
All right. So tell us about what you do with those announcements.
Sure. So Jeff Nias is the
Right,
principal at
yeah.
RHS, and we kind of came to an agreement that, it'd be good to remind students of, really easy things to do to be more sustainable. And it started off as things that, the building manager for pretty much the head custodian, so said, "Hey, Miles, we're doing a great job, but we just need to remind kids to do this." And it was usually things like, certain things that were not recyclable were being placed in the recycling bins, and that would just contaminate the whole thing.
Right.
It started off as announcements like that, where just quick reminders, and then it just kind of evolved into, what are other things that people can do? Because I did get questions in the hallways of, I want to be more sustainable, but I don't know what those things are, especially if they're not taking my class. You just don't. You're not going to get that from like a physics class.
No.
No offense to physics, but
But I mean that you're very specific in what you do. Yeah.
It's like, well, it depends what you're willing to do, what's practical. So here's a list of 5 things. Which ones do you think you could do just once this week?
Right.
And then kind of challenge yourself to do, okay, maybe I did it once this week. Can I do it twice next week?
Right.
And that became a thing where every week on the announcements, maybe sometimes I sent other people just to change it up a little bit, but just little tidbits of, here's an idea, here's a problem, here's an easy way to solve that, here's what I do, and then maybe if I can do it, maybe you can do it as well.
Well, I guess they picked you also not only for your expertise and your voice. I mean, you must have a really good voice because if you're making the announcements at the soccer games and the lacrosse games, I think they must really appreciate that too. Did someone tap you for that, or did you go ahead and say, "Oh, that's something I want to do"?
A little bit of both. So was it 5 years ago? I was teaching AP for the first time. So I had a bunch of seniors, and a bunch of the girls happened to be on the lacrosse team. So I went out just to support them once, and no one was doing the starting lineups. So they basically asked, "Can you do it?" I thought, all right, cool. Like, what am I supposed to do? So I started developing my own script for it. I got the pacing down for it. I kind of knew what I wanted to say, and then I just simply never left that job. So I've been around for that for
I love that
a while
story.
now.
That's awesome. That's so good. So tell me about the green. Is it the green team or the green club? What is it called?
Yeah, at the school, well, we call it the Green Club.
Yeah.
Which we realized actually at the beginning of the year gets a little bit ambiguous because
Yes.
kids don't know what that means. So we've figured that we need to elaborate that a little bit more. It started off as Students for Environmental Action, but that's a mouthful. And C gets a bit confusing as well. So we did change it to the Green Club. So we just need to make sure we have a presence at the club fair. So what we do with the Green Club, is we basically just try to advocate for, environmentally friendly habits or how to be sustainable. And again, picking low-hanging fruit. We don't need perfection on anything. We just need to be better than what we are because, in Ridgewood, we're used to a pretty, grand lifestyle.
Oh, for sure. And I think that our entire community, with a few exceptions, but everyone kind of embraces this whole sustainability thing. We are a tree city, we're a bee city, and we also, thanks in part to what your work and your students have done, the Ridgewood Green team at the village level received the bronze certification for New Jersey for sustainability. What? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, sure. So there's actually a village application, and then there's the school application. So within the village, there's the Sustainable Jersey certification.
Right.
And basically helps you get publicity for, we are making this effort to incorporate as many sustainable activities as possible. And then at the school level, what do we do at the school level? So whether that's curriculum-based, whether you have, environmentally friendly events that reduce waste. So every school in Ridgewood has an application. I actually don't remember who has what.
I know that there's a criteria because years ago I was kind of involved in that, and there's a criteria that, okay, these are the levels that you start off with to gain that bronze certification, and then you add on things and you get the gold and the silver and the platinum or however the trajectory goes. So some of the things that you have done that I am particularly impressed with are what you've done around the Hohokus Brook and planting sedges, not hedges. So clarify that. Tell us the difference.
So this has been a 2-year project actually. So last year, I think it was 3 students, they reached out to PSE&G because that area where they planted the sedges is technically on PSE&G property. So this is on the other corner of the Hohokus Brook from the stadium field.
Right.
So this is right along the East Ridgewood Avenue Bridge. So if you actually look on Street View from maybe 10 years ago, that area used to be entirely forested, which all had to come down because I think we had to build a new water main over there. So
and I would imagine that some of that flooding probably eroded some of that too.
Yeah, so it's hard to see the bank from the photo, but so we had students last year who were interested. It used to be just bare grass. So is there anything we can do to slow down flooding or make us more resilient or absorb more of that stormwater before it goes into the brook, while also providing other ecosystem services? So they got a bit of a late start, so that was kind of on them, but they did at the end of the day get the permissions that we needed. So this year they just ran with those permissions. We had the funding for it, so they actually in one day took out a bunch of grass and replaced them with native sedges.
That's
so Tussock
amazing.
sedge and Pennsylvania sedge are now there.
Clarify for our listeners what sedges are.
Sedges are they're essentially grasses. Yeah, they're just
they're taller
they're
grasses.
clumped, taller grasses. So
and they're very attractive.
And they are. I mean, if people let them grow, which doesn't happen often, but they do get very, very aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
Their roots get deeper, so they're a bit
Really
more
absorb
resilient.
that, yeah.
You don't need. Ideally, you don't need to mow them as often.
Right.
So that's all on one side of the brook, and then on the other side, that's our property. We just planted a bunch of trees.
Yes, that's what I think is so great, is that trees were planted there. And I think I read that Ridgewood High School has an annual sustainability day. What is that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so this year was our 3rd one. And
did you start that program?
Me, Mr. Nias, and a bunch of other teachers.
Great.
I don't want to list them because I'm going to miss
No,
someone.
no,
but yeah.
it's fine.
So it just came up with this idea of, can we have one day around Earth Day where if students want to learn more about sustainability and teachers want to learn more about sustainability, we could do it. So the groundwork was there we have a celebration of the arts and Asian Fest where it's a slightly different schedule. And if they have the time, we don't force anybody to do this, but any teachers who want to bring their students down to acknowledge the arts, acknowledge diversity, and in this case, acknowledge sustainability, they could bring their students there and, get whatever they wanted out of it. So the main thing for me is I've got a bunch of really engaged students in the Green Club who want to make these basically trifold posters and centered on some particular theme and, just broadcast out, here's something that we can all do to make our community a better place and to make Ridgewood a better place, and then therefore the planet as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I read something about dumpster diving. Do expound on that, please.
Yeah, so
because that's not something that you would typically hear something of that happening in Ridgewood.
Right. So this was actually the first year that I was personally involved in that.
Oh, God.
Other teachers took over for the past 2 years.
That's so
this
funny.
doesn't happen in the campus center. This has to happen by a dumpster. So we basically lay out a tarp, take random bags out of the dumpster that's slated for landfills, and see what the contents are. Just to see where are we generating more waste than is necessary.
Ooh, yeah.
Are there any recyclables that we're placing here that should be diverted elsewhere as well? And it's really eye-opening because you find, a pizza with one bite taken out, or, students might buy chicken nuggets from the calf, and then there's still 1.5 remaining. So you're starting to think, well, what are we doing here? Or they buy, this happens so often in the classrooms where students buy water bottles, which drives me nuts, but they take one sip and then forget it at the classroom. So we're getting all the costs and none of the benefits.
Right.
And that particular one drives me insane, but I think it's just eye-opening because students need to see how much waste there is.
Did you find any retainers in those dumpsters? I'm just kidding.
No,
The only time
we have seen them in classrooms, but
yes,
yeah.
The only time that I did dumpster diving is when my kids would lose their retainer at their middle school cafeteria. But I will say this. So I know that the Village of Ridgewood has this food waste collection. Is that something that the high school is pursuing? Are you or are you already doing it?
We actually do it in a very different format, though. So because students eat lunch all over the building,
Right.
we find it really hard to centralize that process of collecting post-consumer waste. So what we do instead, we have Pomptonian who runs our cafeteria. So we have an arrangement with them where in the morning when they're preparing food, they will put all the food scraps in these 5-gallon buckets for us. And then towards the end of the day, we've got student volunteers who go into the kitchens, take those buckets, throw it in our composters in our school garden,
Fantastic,
bring back the buckets, and that's that. And I have to thank Maureen DiChiara for that because she has been extremely cooperative. Like anytime we think, could we make this a little bit better? Yeah, sure. And then she just makes it happen. So that's been going on for 4 or 5 years now.
So are you exploring the idea of, when kids don't eat their chicken nuggets or their pizza, to be able to put those food scraps in the compost as well, or no?
The reason we've been a bit hesitant about that is just because there are things you can't put in compost.
Proteins.
Yeah, meats, dairy, where things just stink up really quickly. They're harder to break down. And it's just, we don't have enough students or staff time to really go around and say, just hang by the bins and policing that. So it just gets difficult. I'd love for that to happen at some point. We actually did have another AP environmental group trying to do that towards the end of the year. It lasted for about 2 days because then the year ended. So, but they test ran it and it worked. So maybe that's something we start off next year. But we do need the students who are willing to put in that time of.
Right, and that's the other thing that I really love about your club is that it's really student driven.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Before we go to that, I just wanted to touch for any of the parents who might be listening here who are concerned about all of the students eating lunch and having to sit on the steps out in the hallway and things like that because our cafeteria isn't big enough. We spoke with the superintendent of public schools for Ridgewood High School, and one of the benefits of that is that students just don't hang by their lockers like back in the day, right? Now they have their Chromebooks, so they don't have to go to their locker and get any books or things like that. So then that really cuts down on conversation time and making friends. And that time when all of those kids are in those hallways and in the cafeteria and wherever else they're eating their lunch at the same time, that's a time for bonding and fellowship. And so it's really a positive thing during that time. So let's go into the student-driven initiatives with the Green Club. I am particularly interested in who's driving this bike lane thing and also the idling situation at the elementary school. So dive into that for me.
Sure thing. So these started off, so I teach AP Environmental Science, and one thing I've started, was it 3 or 4 years ago, is a long-term sustainability project where students have to tackle some project of their own choosing where it doesn't die when they leave for graduation.
Right.
So can you make some impact that that has staying power, that's going to make an impact that you can see if you came back to visit? So the bike lane project, so prior to this project, there are bike lane or bike routes within Ridgewood. They're marked with signs, but it's not really visible. It's not easily visible.
And they're
when
also
you're driving.
disconnected.
Yeah.
Like there's a path here and a path there. I can expound on that in great detail because I did start the Safe Routes to School program in Ridgewood. So I'm very familiar with that. So when you tell me that this bike lane is coming, I couldn't be more excited.
Yeah. So it was 3 students. This was last year's graduating class. They pretty much mapped out on Pleasant Ave. Pleasant Ave is within 2 blocks of most of not the GW side, but almost all the schools on the BF side.
Right.
So we wanted to go from one school to the next. If we had a visible path on Pleasant Ave, it's a bit quieter, it's safer.
It's a very wide street.
Right, it's a wide street. Right now, I obviously to get to RHS, you go primarily on Van Deen for a lot of people. And you see kids biking to BF all the time, but it's a bit messy because a lot of kids go on the sidewalks, some go on the streets. Obviously, they're not really supposed to be on the sidewalk. But at the same time, I don't want to discourage students from biking to school because it's better for the environment. Obviously, it's better for physical health. But
and it's better for their brains.
It's better for your brain. You're up and active. You're exercising. But sidewalks are sidewalks, and there's kids walking on them too. So it's not ideal, and I get why they're not on the streets because Van Deen gets pretty busy. So it's completely understandable. But for Pleasant, it's a block off. So it's a bit wider. I would bike on Pleasant. So I think the plan is the next time they need to resurface Pleasant Ave, that they'll kind of paint in those green bike lanes, so it's way more visible. It's way safer.
I really love that.
Yeah.
I really love that. And I want to talk a little bit about why it's important to let your kids walk and bike to school, not only for the environment, which is very important, not only for their health, which is very important, but also there was a professor at Harvard University that wrote a book called Spark. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. And what he did, it was so fascinating, he did this study in Naperville, Illinois. And gosh, I can't remember who the principal of Ridgewood High School was at the time, but that principal was at Naperville at that time. And was it Mr. Lorenz? Yes. And so they had the study group and they put treadmills in the basement of this high school, and they had the kids go down before school started and walk on the treadmill for 20 minutes. And then they did all of these studies on their brain, and they recognized that the students who had 20 minutes of rigorous, quote unquote, exercise before they started their day. Not only did they perform better on testing, but because they absorbed the information. It's one thing to go in and hear the information, but they absorbed it and were able to regurgitate it much later on. And so that proved his thesis or his hypothesis that if you engage your brain, or if you engage your body, it engages your brain, and you're able to be a better student and perform better in life. And so that is a very big incentive, I think, for parents to say to their student, you know what? I am not going to drive you to school. Yeah. There are tons of reasons why I want parents to give their kids some independence, let them walk. Maybe they don't want to walk alone. Okay, perfect. They're not making friends like we used to before phones were a part of our world. So let kids walk together. It's safer for them to walk. Parents can tell me all day long that they feel safer driving them, but the parents who drive their kids are making it unsafe for the kids who choose to walk and ride their bikes.
Exactly, yeah.
It is an extremely safe community. It's extremely safe to let kids ride their bikes and to walk to school. And it's so much better for the student. It's so much better for building friendships, building alliances, building community. I just couldn't emphasize that enough. And so that takes me into the idling situation at the elementary schools. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I think I had students telling me years ago where, a lot of parents, they mean well, but same thing, where they're waiting outside of an elementary school, waiting for school to be dismissed, but they're just not shutting the engines off, which means, ironically, you're being nice to, your kids trying to pick them up, but then, to get up the line to try to find you, they're walking through a bunch of car emissions. meanwhile, you're still, emitting all the carbon emissions. You are still wasting money on gas. And it just didn't really make sense. So there are no idling signs around the building. Quite of them are a bit faded, so I don't think people really notice them.
I know that they're faded because I'm going to tell you that the whole Safe Routes to School thing started about almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So those signs are old.
Yeah.
It's time. And it's also time to re-educate the parents and say, listen, when you drive your kid to school and you're waiting in that long line, your child could be in their seat, in their classroom, if you just let them walk. Right?
Yeah. And part of it for me, I get it. Like, winter's cold, summer's hot, but in the spring and the autumn, temperatures are quite comfortable. You don't really need the engine running. So that's another part of that. I do empathize. I'm trying to think, what is the situation here? Do you have, some kids might have practices like really, really quickly afterwards. Like, okay.
I understand that too,
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, that is still a cost that's being shared by everybody.
Oh, for sure. I mean, when you think about it, what sort of precipitated the whole thing where I got involved with Safe Routes to School was because they eliminated the bus route for some of the areas in town where the kids are bused. And I was kind of opposed to that because these kids are almost 2 miles away from their home campus, right? So eliminating those bus routes then made it so there were 100 cars or whatever on the road, damaging our infrastructure. You put that many cars on the road twice a day, that's really doing damage to our streets, which affects people in the entire community and people coming into our community. And so I just think there's just like so many detrimental aspects to driving your kids to school. Our kids lack independence. Now, we're learning all of this now. We have so much data that can support that our children are not thriving like they should because they are not gaining that independence of walking and finding their way to school, and like we did when we were kids, right?
Actually earlier in the year we did send out a survey to, might have gone to the middle schools too, but for me I was looking at the high school results where, how do you get to school? Is it biking? Is it walking? If you live on the GW side, I get it, it's harder. Can you carpool?
Right.
Like the worst thing to do is have a parent wake up, do one round trip for you in the morning, and then round trip for you in the afternoon.
You could take 6 other kids with you.
Exactly. Yeah. And, just to prove the point, I've tried to make it my own personal resolution to bike in from Mawa once per month.
God bless.
Which I didn't really achieve, but I'm still trying to make that more of a habit. So it's a 46-minute bike ride for me. It's mostly downhill from Mawa, but I cheat and take the train on the way back. Yeah. But
that's not cheating. It's being
resourceful. Yeah,
correct. And you're also doing a big favor to the environment.
Yeah. But if I can do it from Mawa, you could do it from anywhere else in town. Yeah.
I mean, listen, there's a bike club here in Ridgewood, and I think there's 30 people that are in that bike club, and every day, winter, like they're like the postman, whether it rains, it snows, whatever. They meet at a little place, I think it's in Glen Rock, and they ride their bike into the city and back. My son does it. My son rides his bike into the city. He works in the city. He does it all the time, even in this heat. He did it yesterday, and even in this heat. So it's not impossible to do that. And it's not stupid to do it either. It actually, there's so many benefits to doing things like that. And by the way, some of these kids, and I'm sorry that I'm sounding so disgruntled about it, but some of these kids are being driven 3 blocks. Come on.
Yeah, I've heard the stories, and it's hard for juniors because I think that's when most of them start getting their licenses.
And they want to drive.
And they want to drive. I get it. It's so empowering, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it's slower.
Yeah.
I mean, biking's by far the fastest way. You don't need to worry about parking.
Oh my God, there's so
you
many
just chain your bike.
too.
Yeah. And actually, at the school, we are installing a lot of new bike racks.
Thank God. Thank you. Encourage them.
Yeah, encouraging that. We're actually installing a few bike repair stations as well.
Oh, I like that.
Just so if something does happen, at least it's not like, Mom, can you pick me up? My bike isn't working right now. You can fix it.
Yeah.
And then get home that way. So we're trying to encourage it. We're making it more feasible. We're facilitating that process.
Let's go back to that survey. What else did you find in that survey?
I think the most eye-opening thing was that, I don't remember the exact number, somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 of students found that biking or walking would be feasible. Not that that's how many actually do it,
But they know that
thought that
it's
it could be
possible,
done. Yeah. And I think I was looking at the number one reason why they didn't do it, and, they perceived it as time. If I had more time, I would do it, which I don't really know how to actually combat because we did bump back the start time. So theoretically, there is more time to do that. So
I would like your green team to do this experiment.
Yeah.
Okay, take some of your students, have them be driven or drive to school. Time that, okay? Especially those that are being driven to school.
Yeah.
Because I've had to drive, my kids have broken their legs and I had to drive them to school because walking was just out of the question. And waiting in that long line is ridiculous.
infuriating.
So I really would love for these kids to say that they don't have time. I want them to time that drive.
Yeah.
Right? And then I want them to time the walking and the biking. I would love that survey. And back in the day when the whole Safe Routes to School thing started, we did a survey for parents and we said, why are you not letting your kids walk to school? Because by the way, Ridgewood, our whole system was built that each campus is less than 2 miles away from the student body, right? So kids should easily be able to walk.
Right.
Yeah, sure. You say, oh my God, it's not that far.
No, it's not.
But especially if you're walking with people, it'd be, one thing, before you know it, you're there. Big deal.
The elementary schools had the walking school bus, which was amazing.
I know. It's a very good thing. So we looked at this, and the number one reason was perceived stranger danger. Okay? It's not, it's perceived. Parents believe that their kids are going to be picked up by strangers, okay? And I am here to tell you, go ahead, Google this, look up the details on this, because I will tell you that your child has a better chance of being struck by lightning or winning the lottery than being abducted by a complete stranger. Now, we've had these incidents when we have the walk to school days, we have the months and so on. And honestly, I can't even explain how many times kids are like, this person pulled over and wanted me to get in the car with them. Well, then it turns out it's their neighbor. They didn't even know the neighbor.
Yeah.
And it's because the neighbor saw them walking to school and said, oh, do you want to ride? And so that's the kind of thing that we have to communicate to parents, that it is not dangerous for your kids to walk to school. It is super duper safe for you to let your child walk or bike to school. And then the second reason why parents did not let their kids walk to school was inclement weather, because apparently we don't sell umbrellas.
Right.
Or snow boots or whatever. Honestly, it's so important for our kids to learn how to adapt to that kind of thing, because you know what? Here's the interesting thing. There are more pedestrian incidents now when kids are going to college because they don't know how to get from one place to the next, and they're looking at their phones. It's crazy. So we have to instill those sorts of things in our kids when they're under our roof, and now is a perfect time to do it in this idyllic community. So again, thank you for pushing that agenda. I really appreciate it, and I'm going to look forward to that survey of how long it takes high school students to get to school, and their 3 modes, whether walking, biking, or driving.
And we need to extend that to the parents too. So once you
Totally.
drop off your kid, how much longer is it going to take you to get through the rest of that parking lot and get back home?
Absolutely. I mean, oh gosh, it's crazy. I am super excited about that, and with that, I would like to congratulate you for all the work that you've done and for encouraging the students of your green team to do all of these great things. And then, I love that you're educating the broader community, the broader school community, by doing these PSAs, weekly or however often you do it, or letting the other kids do it. So those are all wonderful things to be proud of. So I want to know, what is your proudest accomplishment that you have been able, in 5 years you've been at Ridgewood?
I just finished my 7th year.
Oh,
actually.
7.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I
No worries.
apologize.
Yeah.
So in 7 years, looking back, what do you think your proudest accomplishment is?
I think it's the added involvement of students in sustainability and the teachers as well. So I'm not going to say it was terrible when I got there. I mean, I just wasn't really as focused on it because, this was actually my first full-time teaching job.
Right.
So I was just trying to get my, feel comfortable and learn what my role was. But especially in the last 3 or 4 years, it's really picked up. So
what do you put that to? Is that your influence, or is it just
it's the students for sure.
sort of like critical mass? It's kind of hitting.
Yeah. So I mean, students are really good at, I'm going to the Green Club, you should come with me. It's like, oh, okay. And then, students just dab their feet into it. And the next thing you know, they're fully diving in. So, and then once you have a bunch of students caring, now it's forcing the adults to care as well. So, I try to make it easy on people. I'm not trying to make it any additional work for anybody. But at the same time, now we have, we're just looking for small little steps. And now that the students are kind of jumping on board, that's really the big win here. So for us, it's, for teaching is tough because you're teaching the same stuff over and over and over again. We're hitting this revolving door where once students leave after graduating, now we're starting at the bottom again for each year. So for me personally, I really need to see those communal gains. Like where is the school moving towards from one year to the next, where if it just kind of stayed status quo, it never feels like you're making any progress with anything. So, we have excellent student leadership. I always miss the seniors who graduate because they just foster such an inclusive community where, we're not demanding too much out of you. Join what you want to do what kind of speaks to you. And as long as that's something, great. But because of that, our student community is fantastic with it. And they're always expecting things now. We don't, they don't even really need me for some of it. We want,
so good to hear.
I'm going on vacation for late July. School garden's still going to need tending to.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to do that without me.
I love knowing that. So I want to talk about that garden too. I forgot to mention that. Tell our listeners what you've done with that garden.
Yeah, so the school garden, we are just trying to grow vegetables and crops and just learn what organic farming would really look like.
Where does our food come from? Some people don't even know that. Yeah.
I mean, we do not do it well. I'll say that. Like our crop yield is actually quite low, but the weather is so finicky, right?
Yes.
So I mean, last year we had 2 months of drought where we got no rain whatsoever, and then you get floods in another year. So I don't put too much emotional weight on that.
Well, it's just the experience of it too. I mean, just being able to get your hands in the dirt is so beneficial for the students, right?
Yeah. So, we don't use pesticides. When you get something to grow, the students did that, right? I mean, I'm there for advice and encouragement and, I'll hop in the fence with you, but, it's kind of learning what food growing really looks like.
And if you neglect it, what happens there too? By the way, so it was actually Gil, our producer of the show. He was saying that he was at a practice or at the campus, and he said, what the heck? Well, who are all those kids over there? And there were like 30 kids in the green team working on something. So how many kids are part of your organization?
It is so tough to judge because it's pretty seasonal. Our classroom has probably a couple hundred kids on the Google Classroom page. Coming to meetings, that's probably 30.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, which is a lot. And, during certain sports seasons, some will have to drop out because they're just not available after school at all.
Yeah.
And then when that sport ends, they can hop back in.
I love that they can rotate. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and our club is not, you have to come to this or you're not a member of the club anymore. We don't want that. We want it to be something that you want to come and do.
And that it's a joy.
Yeah, that you're having fun here, that you feel like these things are important. It's not like if you don't do this, then you're a terrible person because that's not productive. So there's a school garden and there's also the rain gardens. So this year we planted 3 of them, and some are in quite visible locations. So,
well, tell us what that's about.
Yeah, so the rain gardens, there's one at Stevens, one at the Vets parking lot, and then one in the courtyard in Willard.
At Willard, yeah.
Yeah, so rain gardens are designed to have native plants, and there's a little bit of a, it's kind of, it's sloped, so that when it does rain, presumably when it rains a lot, it all goes into the garden. So the plants at the bottom of it are a bit more flood tolerant, so they can absorb all the water for you, while the ones towards the top of those slopes are a bit more drought tolerant. So there's always something there. It's not just grass, because grass, the way we mow it, the roots are so short, they really just don't absorb all that much for you.
That's right.
So for us, these roots are deeper, which means they can absorb more water, but they're still more resilient because if things die back, there's still that root system to help them kind of persist. So the idea behind rain gardens is to slow down stormwater runoff. So all these floods that we keep thinking about here in Ridgewood, it's not going to solve all of that, but it's going to make us more resilient to it. It's going to slightly reduce the problem. Right. And they're also...
Well, if more people did it, it would be a bigger impact.
And they're also ecologically functional. Grass is so short, nothing can really use that, which I'm sure some people want. But at the same time, can we make... I mean, I find them quite attractive, actually. But
well, I'm sure, yeah. And the other thing, too, is if we plant native plants and grasses and so on, then they adapt to the environment too, right?
Yeah, and they're all native species, which means like for these native conditions, they'll get used to it. Once you let them establish, they'll get used to it.
They just adapt.
And they'll flower, they'll provide nectar. Everyone is pretty conscious of how important bees are for us now.
Yes, and we're a bee city too.
Yeah, and we're a
I'm so
bee city,
happy.
so thank Frank Mortimer for that.
Yes.
But there are. This way we form those pathways where pollinators can go from one area to the next without having this huge food desert where they're just never going to find a patch because there's just nothing in between. So probably the most visible one, it's actually technically not a rain garden, but in front of our tennis courts, we have this patch of wildflowers. It's just a meadow at this point where we just took out the grass. This was 2 Novembers ago. We sowed it with seeds covered in burlap.
I love it.
And now it's so, I don't know if you've
Lush,
been there recently,
gorgeous.
but it is beautiful.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. It's so beautiful. I'm
The only thing that's missing is a sign right now, just to communicate exactly what's happening.
So how are we going to get that?
Yeah, so we've actually been in talks with a student who designed. She's super artistic, so she's designing this for us. And we kind of thought about we'll have a QR code, go somewhere,
Smart.
how to make a meadow, but we really want to highlight the native species that are there.
I love
And
that.
for that to happen, we need to wait and see what native species are going to come back year after year.
Right.
So it's June now. I don't know if we make a sign now just to get one more
Well, if
season
you
of
take
games.
that QR code and
Yeah.
have it be in a landing page, you can always change the landing page,
Yeah.
right?
And I'm thinking, like when I go to a park, what signs do I like? It's the ones like, look in this area. What's a flower that you see that's native that you can actually see now?
I also
So that's
think
what I'm
something
waiting
that
for.
might, I really appreciate your ideas, but I'm just saying it would be so grand to have that QR code take us to other places where you've done those, the rain gardens and all the other work that that your club has done. And I also want to talk about how you are collaborating with the green team at Ridgewood. You mentioned Frank Mortimer, and he is the council liaison for the green team now, right?
Yeah, he pops in. Pam Perrin's the official
she is now.
council
Okay.
liaison. Yeah, so I got, I guess, nominated. I don't even know what the proper word is. So when Tom Gorman was principal, he saw my involvement in sustainability and said, we needed a staff liaison to this organization. You seem like a natural fit. So I just kind of dropped by, not knowing what it was. And it's been about 5 years now, maybe more than that.
Thank you for
I've lost track, yeah.
adding your expertise and passion to that. It's been really helpful, obviously. We just got that bronze award.
And it's hard because, from the village standpoint, there's no, I don't want to say there's no mandatory communication, but there could be more, right? So even I don't know what's going on at the elementary schools or the middle school. So it's really tough. Yeah.
So that's something to work on too, is collaboration within the communities too. I know the green team is doing a great job. We interviewed the director of Ridgewood Water, Rich Calby, the other day, and we talked about those rain barrels and how important that is too. So that was a community-wide thing that got across through the green team. And highly recommend the rain barrels. Go over to Backyard Living, buy one of those if you're listening to this. So we're going to need to wrap this up pretty quickly. But before we go, I just think that some of your passions outside of the environment and sustainability are really intriguing. And I know that you are an avid curler. That you have to tell us about. And then I also know that somehow or another you became enamored with Sweden and you speak Swedish.
Lite, yeah.
Yeah.
So which one first? Let's go curling first. So
Okay.
2010 Vancouver Olympics. I love obscure things. So, I'm just watching this and thinking, is that available around me? So I think this was when I was in Ithaca. And unfortunately, the nearest club was in Utica, which was 2 hours away. So it didn't really work out. But everywhere that I've gone, I've always just kind of looked at, is this an option? And luckily here, the nearest curling club is in Ardsley, across the Hudson. So for me, it's a, 40-minute trek over there. But it's just, I don't even know how to describe it. It's so fun, though. Everyone's so friendly. Naturally, it's a Scottish and
you're
Canadian
with a bunch
sport.
of people that enjoy the same thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, so the Edge, is it called the Edge or the Ledge? What is that building in New York City where they have the glass platform that you walk out on? They have a curling, it's like a bowling alley, but it's curling in there. Did you know that?
I did not.
gotta try that out.
I think I've seen photos of it, and yeah, pretty close to, yeah. I mean, it looks a bit like shuffleboard.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, actually, I've had students go over to Ardsley before, or sometimes students'
So
parents.
now you're encouraging your students to become
Yeah,
curlers. I love it.
Actually, every year I invite the AP Environmental students to head out there, and we have a fun day on the ice.
The next thing you know, we're going to have a curling club at Ridgewood High School.
Wouldn't
that be amazing?
I've thought about it for
Do
such
it.
a long time.
Do it. I mean, here you were the soccer coach.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, you can do this too.
I mean, that would be the number one way to trick me back into coaching is get one of those abandoned buildings on 17, turn it into a curling
Why
ring,
not?
and then next thing you know, Ridgewood curling. And
You never know. Yeah. I
It'd be
mean, dream
amazing.
big, buddy.
Yeah.
So tell us about Sweden.
So that started around the same
Curling?
around the same time actually. So I didn't love where things were going here from a federal government standpoint. So I was just kind of jokingly looking for a backup country, and Canada at the time wasn't that different from us when it came to outlooks like that. So I just jokingly picked Sweden. They care about the environment, they care about their winter sports, and then the more I looked into it, I just kind of liked how they were doing things. And I'm not naive in thinking they're the perfect country because there's no such thing. But when it came to a lot of the things that I cared about, I thought they were doing things the right way. So anytime an opportunity came along, I just kept kicking the door open, or just sticking my foot in to prevent it from shutting. So actually in grad school in Michigan, they offer Swedish courses. So I figured, hey,
Why not?
Why not? I'll audit it so I don't have to actually do the work.
Right,
but,
right.
When I have the time,
I'll learn
actually
the language.
Yeah, I'll learn the language. And having a great teacher always helps. And, that's part of why I kind of liked becoming a teacher because, like, hey, I remember how important they were for me. So, can I
emulate
continue
that? And yeah.
So, Sweden, this is going to be the first summer that ruins it, but I've actually gone to Sweden 3 summers in a row. Just
Good for you.
not to necessarily look at things, but just to be around Swedes. Because there are some cultural differences between there and here that I just really appreciate.
Such as?
So they have a concept called Jäntelägen, which is kind of this concept that no one person is any more important than anybody else.
Oh, I love that.
Where, even if you have a ton of money, if your project is going to hurt someone else, you can't do it. And, I appreciate American freedoms for sure, but, I think that
We have to look out for each other.
But you do need to look out for each other, and I don't think we do that as well as the Swedes do, or as well as any of the Scandinavian countries
Right.
do. It's more of a cultural thing. I try to bring that into the classroom as well. It's like, hey,
Well, that's great.
just because you're really good at this thing doesn't mean you can lord your accomplishments over other people. We need to work together to do anything.
And also,
that we need
I
to
think
do.
you're instilling in the kids, a sense of adventure too.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So do you aspire to retire there someday?
That's the dream. Yeah. I actually thought about moving there, like permanently a little bit earlier, but there are a lot of things that kind of slow that down a little bit. But the dream right now is, retire here. And if it is possible, I'll move out there and, kind of see how my senior citizen days, which will probably start pretty soon. But yeah.
Oh, come on. You're still a youngster.
I feel like I act like an old man sometimes, but.
Well, I mean, it is. Teaching is not an easy job. But I have to say, we'll wrap this up now, but I just want to say that I appreciate the energy, the enthusiasm that you bring to Ridgewood High School and to our broader community. You've really made an indelible mark on this community, so thank you so much.
Thanks.
And thanks, too, for coming in and speaking with us. I really appreciate it.
Me.
So I want to say thank you once again for being here, Miles. And this episode of Ridgewood Talks has been produced by Ignite Creator Studios right here in Ridgewood. And I want to encourage all of you, if you would like to get your message out to the masses, please consider coming to Ignite Creator Studios right here in Ridgewood and let the great team of Gil Edwards take good care of you. He will make sure that your episodes are produced in an excellent way. And I ask also that you follow us on all the social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and also TikTok. So thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Take care.